Okay. Yes, Paul.
One little example, along that line is, you read a book,
This is Paul.
you read a book, and you have that. You go watch that book made into a movie, and all they focus on is action.
It's action, yeah.
And it's like, I like the book a lot better, because you have narrative.
How many people were disappointed in the very last movie of The Lord of the Rings? It was all action. I was like, but wait a minute. What about all the trees interacting with that and the this and the that? And I was like, it was all war, and I was like, I only watched it that once. Yes?
I heard described as narration, you have the descriptions that are going on, and that's kind of narration.
But it's more than just description. I just want to correct that.
Okay.
But go ahead.
And then one area I heard that's also really important is the internalizations, which is something you don't necessarily hear in the movie, where the character, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, that's an important part just to draw them into the story too.
Yes. Although you can get those inner feelings even in a movie, but you have to have those good actors. If you go back to the old movies, Cary Grant, Jimmy Stewart, you could tell their internalization just from the expression on their face. I mean, we really had some good actors long ago. Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy. I mean, that camera would center in on their features, and you would know what's going on. So then, yeah, narrative, however, the internalization, like you're talking about, as far as editors are concerned, is still narrative, okay? Because you're describing what they're going through. But I understand what you mean. It's different, and it's very important, particularly in romance. But it's not action, and it's not dialogue. And yet in a romance, it's not really a romance without that. You have to have it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I don't like straight mysteries or straight action books, because they're missing a lot of times that internalization, that narrative. And again, that pulls you through the story. Anyone else have a comment or a question? Yes?
And that's one reason my sister-in-law loves these complex psychological thrillers that bore me to death. I think Elizabeth George, psychiatrist analyzing all the actions of who does what when, and there's not that much action. But it's her, so she likes the narrative. Even though there's no mysteries, they're so complex, they don't have action.
Yes. It's true. And it was my editor, her name was, she left Berkeley about 5 years ago. Oh, I loved her. I have loved all of my editors. My editor at Avon was Lisa Kirsch, who's a senior editor there now. And, Christine Zika. Did any of you know these people? Christine Zika was a wonderful editor, and she's the one who told me about these. They have to be balanced, because she was like, well, why did they do it all the time? And I was like, well, isn't that like your action? She goes, no. And then she's the one who told me that. So I thought I would tell you, because these are all things I had to learn as I was writing. Yes.
So the intimacy, the sex, that part of the romance,
it's internalization, but it's also action.
Okay.
For us.
How the person is experiencing the moment is part of what you're writing.
Yes, and that internalization that she was talking about is also a big part of the sex, the kissing, the love, because that's what we're going for.
But you would say it's, in terms of balance in the text, it really would be action.
Yes.
Because something very significant happened.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think it deepens the story too. When you only have one aspect that's heavy, with action specifically, it's quick because it's action, but it doesn't broaden the experience or broaden the story and make it bigger. If you have a combination of description, narrative, and internalization, that's what makes a really great story a great story, is because you're able to create the environment of the character for the reader, and that's what really pulls them around, because they can actually feel like being within the story. And I think it is a really delicate balance, because you need the dialogue, but you need the action, and trying to balance that with the narrative, I think is where it gets tricky, but you need all three, because I think the best action is when there's also dialogue, right? You have to see the characters not just running away, but how they're feeling about running away, and and that internal, well, should they actually stop and fight, or is running away the right thing? You need to really kind of see all that when you're reading, and I think that's what pulls the character, pulls the reader in with the character, because then they are then now thinking, well, if I was in that situation, what would I be doing?
Yes, yes. That's right. I'm going to just go on, if you don't mind. I don't know if we're able to get some of what you're saying on the tape, which I would really like to do. I hope it does. Now, there's one other thing, and this is something that I've never noticed an editor talking about, but it has to be in your story. And copy editors in particular are like about it. I won't say that on tape what I was going to say. Okay, so anyway, we'll just leave that. And that is, okay, you have to have a rhythm, okay? I know we're not writing poetry, no. I know it's prose, and I know it's a book, it's a novel, but there has to be rhythm. It has to have a rhythm. You establish the rhythm. And sometimes, and I think this is what Lissa, my old editor, used to talk about. It would take her a while to get into my rhythm. You see what I mean? And starting out a story, and her thing would be, she would try to handle it by all kinds of different things. Well, let's take out this narrative, let's do this, let's try to get that story going. And then, along about chapter 2, she would start getting into the rhythm, and you'd start getting into the rhythm of the book, and then I would notice that all her corrections would lessen, as she got into that rhythm. I don't know exactly how to explain it, other than it's you, and it's a rhythm that we all feel. In Native America, scouts, the old scout, used to be able to permeate an area that they would go into, okay? There would be a forest, and they would permeate it with their beingness, with their presence. They would just, I don't know how else to say it, but permeate it, okay? So that, and this is true, by the way, there are so many different actual records of this, this historical fact, and I write about it in some of my books, to my understanding of it, that they permeate an area, and they know the rhythm of that area, okay? And they talk about every area has a rhythm, okay? The rhythm of the trees in the breeze, the rhythm of the grass, the rhythm of the animals as they go through, and they would attune their own senses to that rhythm, okay? They would know what that rhythm was, so that if you have a foreign influence coming in, they would know it. They would not have to see it. They would not have to hear it. They would not have to have anything. They would know it. And I heard it described by the old scouts in this way. When you throw a pebble in, it makes these, those waves, okay? You see it. And sound also has those waves. Well, the rhythm has those waves. So that once you get attuned to that rhythm, if something were to come in, they would know that. It was a matter now of discovering what was that. Oh, swans were really something. they were really something. They could tell in the old days, miles around them, what was going on. Miles. 380-degree circle around them, and they would be able to perceive what was going on. Interesting stuff. Now, I don't know exactly how to say what it's rhythm. You don't want to mesmerize the reader. You want them awake. You don't want to hypnotize them. What you want them to do is to get into the rhythm of your thoughts, your prose, because it's my consideration, this is Kay's opinion, I go by Kay, by the way, this is my opinion, that it's the rhythm that grabs hold of someone and they can't put that book down. Yes, it's the plot. Yes, it's all these other things that I'm talking about, you know. Yes, it's this, yes, it's that, but it's that rhythm, you know. You end that chapter, and yes, you might end it on a cliffhanger, but on some books, it doesn't matter if it's a cliffhanger, you're going to put it away. What is it that carries you through that book, and you can't put it down? Just a second, I will get it. And it's my opinion that it's that rhythm, and you establish it. Okay? Each one has a different rhythm, and it's part of, I guess, what they call your voice. All right? And your voice establishes that as you start to write. A lot of people will talk about voice, but I heard a New York Times, not heard, I heard on tape, a New York Times best-selling author, it's L. Ron Hubbard again, saying that you have to write a few 100,000 words before you can establish your voice. After you've written a few 100,000 words, you have a voice. You know, it's who you are. It's what you think. It's your beingness being inputted into that story. It's your viewpoint. You had a question.
I was going to ask how you felt it affected voice, and do you think that rhythm creates voice or voice creates rhythm?
I think it's an integral part. Just like I think voice is about who you are, how you view the world. There's a lot of different aspects to voice. Okay, it's who you are, how you look at things, your viewpoint, how you, like you and I might see the same thing happening. Let's say someone walks in the room, you know, and I go, oh, what a beautiful person, and you might go, you know, something like that. It's your individual self-determinism in that story. That's a whole nother thing that we could talk about, but voice is part of your self-determinism. Who you are, what you think, your opinion, your ideas. And rhythm is a part of who you are naturally. You all have that rhythm, no matter what it is. And once you write a few 100,000 words, you establish what that is. Okay? And it's so natural to you that it will come out in the book. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, what we all say, you have to write. To get these things, you have to write. And you have to write a lot. And you have to, you know, and it's nice if you're published, at least, you know, in ebooks or whatever, because then you're earning a living as you're establishing yourself. Another example of voice is, let's take, has anyone here read the Harry Potter series?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, you know, it takes me probably a good 10 pages to get into her voice. You know, like I remember picking up the book again after I'd read them all, and I'm starting to read it, and about on page 10 I'm going, okay, I get it. I get who she is. You know, I get who she is and what she's doing, and this is how where we're going, and, you know, all that sort of thing. And then that voice pulled me through, that rhythm that she establishes, and it's a different kind of rhythm than what I have, you know, and I'm sure your rhythm would be different than what I have, and it doesn't matter what it is. That's the point that I want to make. It doesn't matter what it is. It's you. And it's you putting yourself into that story. And it's your intention, your viewpoint, how you look at life. And that you establish in the book. And that's what pulls it through, is you putting yourself, your self-determinism, your viewpoint, what you think of life, into that story.